What's up, yo? Exodus 1, aka Indigo Sky, aka Trick Ranking. I want y'all to like, subscribe, share. Definitely hit the notification bell. Um, About to start this thing off, see what we got going on, y'all. I want y'all to like, subscribe, share. Definitely hit the notification bell if you like to follow me on any other platforms. Everything's in the top description if you like to. If you like to support the channel, cash app in the description. With that being said, let's get this show on the road. I let me wrap it up for y'all. Hold on, y'all. I got to. All right, let me open up this window too, man. Get some air. Get the airflow.
You are watching a master's work. Trapaholics, real trap shit.
got something to say. Why? Cut it out, bro. say, am I Denzel Washington? Like, but stop it. Stop it. I am not Denzel Washington.
Walking out of the nighttime, city winds, sleepless eyes. Hear her voice, shake my window. Sweet seducing sight, get me out into the nighttime. Four walls won't hold me tonight.
I see what's on YouTube. Check out more videos. Got a long crime update on the David thing, so let's see what they talking about.
Never read books again. This is insane.
Open this. Scan your to be read list.
Now be hit with federal charges. I wonder because of the alleged child sexual abuse material apparently found on his devices. This alleged illegal sexual relationship over state lines. Are the feds getting involved? Are they already? Because if that is the case,
I already tell y'all it's going federal because he had CP. He had the CP on his phone.
David's legal predicament would change drastically. I am bringing on a former federal prosecutor to discuss. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. So before we go any further, if you're into content creation, if you're putting things out on social media, have you ever wondered how we're able to share all of these clips from all of these stories so quickly? Here's the secret. We use some
Hey y'all, we are reacting to Law and Crime. Just check it out.
thing called Opus Clip. This is an all-in-one AI editor that makes it so easy to cut, create, and upload videos across any platform. Through AI, Opus Clip generates B-roll, it reframes footage, and it even cleans up audio. It is so easy. Just visit opus.pro/sidebar. You sign up, you upload, and in minutes you have perfectly edited clips ready to go. For TikTok, Shorts, Reels, Opus Clip is your one-stop shop. And having a tool like Opus Clip means that our producers can get you viral courtroom updates instantly. This is the most powerful tool there is to share ideas and edit like a pro. So go to opus.pro/sidebar to get a free week and then 50% off. Could David face federal charges? Now remember, he's currently charged with California state crimes. 21-year-old David Anthony Burke has been charged with first-degree murder, continuous sexual abuse of a child under 14, and unlawful mutilation of human remains, all in connection with the death of 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez, who we spent
All in connection. This is horrible.
found dead, mutilated in a Tesla at a Hollywood tow yard out in Los Angeles, and that this car was apparently registered to David. And the criminal complaint also includes special circumstance allegations of murder of a witness, murder for financial gain, lying in wait. There was a special allegation that Burke allegedly used a deadly and dangerous weapon, a sharp instrument, to commit the crime. And the reason that's all important is because if he's convicted, he could get a higher penalty. He could get life in prison without the possibility of parole. He can even get the death penalty, even though there's a moratorium on executions out in California. But essentially the argument is that he allegedly killed Celeste on April 23rd, 2025, after she threatened to expose him. Prosecutors allege he couldn't let anyone know about their alleged illegal sexual relationship, that this would ruin his career. So they claim he lured her to his property, killed her shortly after she arrived, stabbed her to death, and then dismembered her body. He has entered a not guilty plea. It's important to always remember that he is innocent until proven guilty. But with all that said, now I am wondering about federal charges. Could federal charges be on the horizon? Because if that is the case,
He definitely got CP on his phone as federal.
that will change everything. For that, I want to bring in Gene Rossi, former federal prosecutor, criminal defense attorney, to talk about this. Gene, thank you so much for taking the time. Always good to see you. I have to just start with the big one. This is the one, when this came out, this was my first thought. And I haven't had an opportunity to really dissect it as much as I wanted to. Because from the evidence list included in a filing ahead of the preliminary hearing, which is set for the end of the month, and that's what prosecutors will present what they say is sufficient evidence in this case to move forward. There's this part. It says, quote, the description of photographs depicting the victim naked, as well as while she was engaged with defendant in sexual activity when she was 13. As this evidence constitutes child sexual abuse material, CSAM, the photographs themselves will not be presented. While all possible charges that could be proven were not filed, the CSAM is proof of their ongoing sexual relationship while the victim was 13 and 14 years old. And Los Angeles County Deputy District Attorney Beth Silverman said in court in a recent hearing that the search warrants in this case turned up, quote, a significant amount of child pornography on Burke's devices. Now, I go to you, Gene. If that is the case, is that automatically federal charges?
It's not automatically, but it sure points towards federal involvement. And there are two federal charges that could occur here, and I'll get to a third in a moment. But I want to go to the child pornography. They have seized 8 terabytes of information from his iCloud account. They've only reviewed 1 terabyte. So they got 7 more terabytes to go where they could even enhance the murder charge and also child pornography. But go to feds. The U.S. Attorney or Department of Justice could charge him, theoretically, with possession of child porn and or production of child porn. Possession is a 5-year minimum. The production is, I think, a 15-year minimum. I could be wrong on that, but I think it's 10 to 15 years. But it's a minimum. The other charge that could possibly occur here is federally, is kidnapping. It appears that she may have been lured to his apartment across state lines, and that for the purpose of kidnapping her, not letting her go, and then he abused her and he killed her. Kidnapping resulting in death is at federal level.
It would still be federal. Would it still be federal if she came from Lake Elsinore, California, to the Hollywood Hills in California?
No, but we don't know if she went to another state and he was communicating with her. We don't know. We got 8 terabytes of information. We have 7 more terabytes to go. We don't know that. But on the child pornography stuff, that's definitely an interest of the federal prosecutors. I can tell you that right now.
Let's explore that a little bit. I looked at some of the statutes and tell me what the elements are and how it might apply. So I saw 18 USC 2251, sexual exploitation of children, production of child pornography. 18 USC 2252, certain activities relating to material involving the sexual exploitation of minors, so possession, distribution, and receipt of child pornography. 2252A, certain activities relating to material constituting or containing child pornography. And I looked under the DOJ's website, they basically say images of child pornography are not protected under First Amendment rights and are illegal contraband under federal law. Section 2256 defines child pornography as any visual depiction of sexually explicit conduct involving a minor, someone under 18 years of age. Visual depictions include photographs, videos, digital, or computer-generated images distinguishable from an actual minor, and images created, adapted, or modified that appear to depict an identifiable actual minor. Federal jurisdiction is impacted if the child pornography offense occurred in interstate or foreign commerce. So this includes, for example, using U.S. mails or common carriers to transport child pornography across state or international borders. Additionally, federal jurisdiction almost always applies when the internet is used to commit a child pornography violation. Even if the child pornography image itself did not travel across state or international borders, federal law may be implicated if the material, such as the computer used to download the image or the CD-ROM used to store the image, originated or previously traveled in interstate or foreign commerce. And then it goes, any violation of federal child pornography law is a serious crime. Convicted offenders face severe statutory penalties. For example, a first-time offender convicted of producing child pornography faces statutory minimum of 15 years to 30 years maximum in prison. First-time offender convicted of transporting child pornography faces, like you said, fines and a statutory minimum of 5 years to 20 years in prison. Convicted offenders may face harsher penalties if the offender has prior convictions. Okay, I guess I go back to you when I'm laying that out. Is it just the fact you put it on your device and it connects to the iCloud? Is that sufficient? I mean, I think a lot of these statutes were built before our technology. And so it's not like a classic example, child pornography, you put it in a mail, you send it to somebody, right? If it's on your phone and it's in the iCloud, is that enough?
That could be enough. Because here's why. Because the interstate nexus for child pornography cases, and actually any federal crime, the bar is very low in terms of affecting interstate commerce. If you use your iCloud, if you use a computer, if you use the mails, it's almost inevitable you're going to invoke a federal jurisdiction via the commerce, affecting commerce. So that doesn't bother me one bit in terms of the affecting interstate commerce. I did want to add this. The intent here would be circumstantial. You probably don't have any admissions from Mr. Burke. I'm going to call him Mr. Burke. So you really, just his possession would satisfy the elements of either intentional, knowingly, and or willfully possessing this material, or transporting or producing. it sounds like he took it up a notch and he was producing this child porn. He just wasn't receiving it. He seemed to be obsessed with her. I would say this, one of the articles that I read said it's possible that he was starting his relationship, if you will, I use that loosely, with Ms. Hernandez when she was age 12. So we got 12, 13, that's well below 14, of course. So he's facing some charges at the state level that are pretty significant. But I want to go back to the facts. If there is any indication that she crossed state lines, that would invoke the kidnapping statute if he lured her across state lines, which is possible, I don't know. And they have this death resulting clause of the kidnapping statute. That is death penalty eligible at the federal level. And I'll guarantee you this, if the LA U.S. Attorney's Office has evidence of kidnapping resulting in death, you can guarantee they're going to charge it, and they probably would seek the death penalty, because from what I've read, this gets to a case I had in the Eastern District, Virginia, United States versus Ernesto Cole. He was a drug dealer. He killed about 35 people. One of the people whom he killed was in the Eastern District, Virginia. The victim was put in a car that was parked on Teddy Roosevelt Island during the 4th of July in 1991. And tourists and people saw flies and the odor from the car over 3 days was just overwhelming. They impounded the car and they found inside the victim. That was the basis of the murder charge, the drug trafficking murder charge. This has similar qualities. It seems like that she was left in the trunk of that car for weeks, while it was parked in front of his rental property in Hollywood, I think.
Yeah, and that's what complicates it. But again, I haven't seen anything that, like, the car was driven across state lines. It might have been transported within California, but I haven't seen it crossing state lines. Which actually, talking about crossing state lines, it brings me to something else. I'm curious your perspective on another potential federal charge. Sex trafficking. What do I mean? So in the brief, it says numerous text messages between defendant and the victim evidencing their sexual relationship, pregnancy, abortion, and use of Plan B emergency contraception. Messages through March 2025 prove defendant continued to manipulate the victim as she messaged, "All we do is have sex and just hang out. Man, I want more than that for myself." These messages were obtained from defendant's iCloud data. And by the way, apparently there was a prior investigation into their alleged relationship. And it said, despite being informed by law enforcement the victim was only 13, defendant continued to pursue her. After the victim returned home in February 2024, her parents took her cell phone away. Defendant drove to Lake Elsinore and paid a junior high school student in the victim's class $1,000 to give the victim a cell phone defendant purchased so they could stay in contact. Throughout 2024, the victim spent a significant amount of time with defendant, including summer weekends at his home in the Hollywood Hills and traveling with him to Las Vegas, London, and Texas to meet his family. Gene, whenever I hear about an alleged illegal sexual relationship with a minor, and this is going across state lines and international lines, is that sex trafficking?
Yes. Go to the Diddy trial in the Southern District of New York. He had a RICO count, he had a man-and count, and he had sex trafficking involving violence. I don't think you have RICO here, but you could have a Mann Act. Mann Act is, I'm in Washington, D.C., I call a lady of the night in L.A., hey, I'll pay your airfare and hotel, come here and we'll have physical relationship. That's a Mann Act violation. There's no threats, there's no violence. If you add violence, that's sex trafficking involving violence, or the threat of violence. We could have that. Now here's the thing, this is why I think kidnapping could be on the radar screen, in addition to Mann Act or sex trafficking at the federal level. I'm sure she left the state of California, and there were communications between Mr. Burke and Ms. Hernandez that caused her to come back to LA and engage in a relationship with him when she was under 14, or even if she wasn't under 14. Right. Sex trafficking doesn't have an age. Mann Act doesn't have an age. So those are two federal charges that could apply.
Hi guys, my name is Anu from Camino Barcelona, and we help students from all over the world learn Spanish here.
Does he have to promise her something? Does he have to give her something of value? Does he have to give her money? Does he have to, is it paying for the trips? Because isn't that a key component of the sex trafficking case? I don't know if it's different if you're talking about money.
The jury instructions for the Mann Act and the sex trafficking is very broad. It could be entice. Entice could be you're just the verbal persuasion. It could be a financial gain. It's very broad how you entice somebody to cross state lines for either Mann Act purposes or sex trafficking purposes.
Okay, by the way, before I go into the next component of this and how this may work, I just want to go back to the potential CSAM, the child sexual abuse material. What's a defense? And look, this is the prosecution's narrative about what they found. It's the prosecution's description of what these potential images are. Do you say, as a defense attorney, it's not that these are very benign images, they're not what is being described? Or if he's in possession of it, it's on his devices, case closed?
The thing about child pornography, if I have a magazine on my desk right now, and it's child pornography, and I know it's on my desk, and it crossed state lines, I got it in the mail, I'm guilty of possession of child pornography. That's all you need. It's really an easy charge to prove. The only defense would, well, two defenses. One, you didn't know you had possession. If you had possession, it was a mistake. That would be one defense. The other defense is, it's not really child porn. It's a photo of a young girl in a nice dress or in the playground. It's not child pornography. That would be the other defense. That second defense, the other defense, that doesn't go anywhere. I'm sure what's on his iCloud or anything short of the iCloud is pretty graphic, and I think Justice Stewart said, pornography, I know it when I see it. Same thing applies to child pornography. I know it when I see it. So it's not hard to prove that that's child pornography.
I want to touch upon something else. So Beth Silverman, again, the assistant DA who's prosecuting this case, said that discovery materials in this case would include the results of a wiretap, okay, and also searches of Burke's cell phone and iCloud accounts, and that law enforcement executed 54 search warrants. Wiretap. Does that mean the feds are involved?
Possibly, yes. Now, at the state level, they can get wiretaps, but at the federal level, wiretaps are very common. Well, they're common in this type of case. So it could be a federal wiretap, it could be a state wiretap, it could be both. Here's the other thing I was interested in. There were grand jury subpoenas served on the parents of Mr. Burke in Texas, okay,
Yes.
Houston, Texas. They were served on the parents in April of 2025, and as you mentioned before, her alleged murder occurred around April 23 of 2025. And the motive would be, one, she could possibly be pregnant, and or he's worried that he's a target of an investigation. What I'd like to know is, were they just state grand jury subpoenas, or had the feds gotten involved and also served grand jury subpoenas on the parents? The reason I mention that is, if the parents got grand jury subpoenas from the feds and they were doing something to conceal, alter, or impede the investigation, that's an obstruction of justice charge.
Okay, that actually leads into something else. I thought about this. I don't know if there's anything here. There is a federal law in the books against tampering with or killing a witness. I was part of a federal proceeding, right? Now, as far as we know, there was no federal proceeding. However, if we go by the prosecution's narrative that she was allegedly going to expose him about their relationship, and even though, again, there's been nothing to indicate there was a federal proceeding or a federal investigation, but if she said, I'm going to show everybody these pictures, or I'm going to the FBI, if there are like messages about that, could theoretically this be a case of allegedly tampering with, killing a witness at the federal level? I might be stretching this because I don't know all the situation, but I thought about it.
Well, at the federal level, you need an investigation. You need a pending proceeding. And I supervised indirectly a charge where a witness in a federal investigation was going to cooperate with the feds or had been cooperating, and she was brutally murdered by MS-13 members. So that was a separate charge involving witness tampering But it would be an aggravating factor for first-degree murder in the special circumstances, that she was a potential witness and he took her life, allegedly took her life. I will say this though, unless the wiretaps have some admissions or inculpatory statements, Mr. Burke has an argument that there's no, I'm assuming there's no forensic DNA on the body. That would be bad, of course. But they got an argument, they have an argument, I don't say it's successful, that, it's too attenuated. You can't place him at the scene of any crime. There's no admission that he took her life. If that's the case, then they have an argument.
Well, I'll counter that by saying,
Georgians hate being taken advantage of, and that's what Rick Jackson did. According to the U.S. Attorney, Jackson's company profited off a Medicare fraud scam targeting seniors. That's despicable. And this is Jackson's personal financial report, signed by Jackson, showing $1 billion of taxpayers' money going into his pocket. Yet, Jackson got filthy rich on your money. Just imagine how much more he grabbed as governor.
Go ahead.
they through digital evidence. Okay, this is what they're saying they have. I don't know. We'll have to see that. But they claim through digital evidence and cell phone evidence and surveillance evidence, they can track her movements to this property. They can track purchases that he made to allegedly, dispose of her body. They can track his movements to Santa Barbara. Also through, messages that he allegedly sent. They've created a timeline of when this alleged murder happened. And there is some forensic material too that I think is of note. But I just want to take a step back here. What would be the advantage of pursuing a federal case simultaneously with a state case? Is it that if there's a weakness in the state case, hey, we can go the federal route? Does it complicate it at all? Talk to me about that.
Well, I mean, the advantage is the defendant's facing two wars, if you will, Eastern Front, Western Front. So that always puts a burden on the defense. And it's a lot easier to convict somebody when you have two battles going on. The negative is, if you have two charges in two separate forms, state and federal, you're going to have problems with production and disclosing exculpatory evidence disclosed, because you're going to have the state and federal compare how much information they each have, and a judge is going to say, hey, state, you get everything you can from the feds and vice versa. That could complicate things. Usually what happens is the state defers to the feds, but I think the horse has, we had to conduct it here every Saturday. The horse has left the gate, if you will. On the state charge, they've already started a process. Usually, at the beginning of an investigation, the state and feds decide who goes first or who's going to take over the case.
So in other words, if there were federal charges, it doesn't necessarily mean the federal case would go first. There's a possibility the state case could go first.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Now, I don't recall any mention of the feds at all. What do I mean by that? Press conference from LA authorities, the LA District Attorney's Office, law enforcement, haven't heard anything about the feds. That doesn't necessarily mean it's not happening, right? I mean, could the LA DA's office just not be saying anything? Are the feds investigating behind the scenes? I don't know. You tell me.
Jesse, think about it. You're Nate Hochman and you're having a press conference. You're announcing these first-degree murder charges and other charges involving lewd acts and sexual exploitation. The last thing you want to do is have a press conference and say, okay, we've charged Gene Rossi, but the feds are doing something too. You're directing the media to go to some other forum to ask questions. You want the focus to be on your investigation alone. So it doesn't surprise me that they were very reluctant intentionally to avoid mentioning that the feds may have an investigation. I would be shocked if the the U.S. Attorney's Office does not have an investigation or will be starting one. I would be shocked if they are not doing anything.
And again, maybe someone in the comments could correct me, but I go back to that press conference. I don't recall the LADA saying, this was a joint operation between the LADA's office, the LAPD, Riverside County Sheriff's Office, the FBI, because sometimes you see that, right? They'll be like, we had a multi-agency effort, the FBI helped us with information. Sometimes the FBI is part of a state case, right? So the fact that they didn't mention that, you tell me.
Well, that they did not mention the feds at all, FBI, ATF, anybody else.
They can still wrap it up, though. They can still wrap it up.
Does not surprise me one bit. They want to have to focus on the LADA's office and their office alone. Not that they want to hog the media, but they want to focus on their case. If there was a joint investigation, they would have mentioned that. But I want to stress, it does not mean the feds are just sitting on their hands and not looking at this at all. I guarantee you, they are looking at it. Whether they charge is another matter, but they are looking at it.
Gene Rossi, my gosh, gave us a lot to think about. Thank
I bet you didn't know that Trader Joe's sells anti-aging skincare disguised as tin fish. This is my current hyperfixation snack, and this is coming from a girl who used to gag at the sight of oysters. Oysters are one of the most bioavailable sources of zinc you can eat. Zinc is crucial for clear, resilient skin. Eating these is basically like using anti-aging skincare from the inside out. They're great for breakouts and skin repair, collagen support, and they even have nutrients that improve your energy levels, your blood flow, all supporting your immune system, fertility, and nervous system. I drained the oil and blended it with fresh lemon juice until smooth, and served it with capers, seed oil for potato chips, and fresh dill. It's salty, briny, creamy, and honestly a 10 out of 10 snack. The crunchy chips help balance the texture of the oyster. If you're looking at these and thinking, there's absolutely no way I could eat that, check out my viral oyster dip recipe from episode 16. And yes, I think 3-ingredient potato chips are okay to eat, especially when they're acting as a delivery system for these delicious oysters. Follow along as we cook our way to episode 15. Now go check out.
about. Thank you so much, sir. Always good to
Know everything about any fragrance just by taking a photo. Get instant details on any perfume, brand and perfumer, fragrance.
YouTube, Chigs.
Hey, I was about to check out Chig Smooth. Probably last 10 minutes of this video, yeah.
Fine, you know, I like Chick Smooth. Chick Smooth is somebody I really enjoy listening to on YouTube because Chick just got an intellectual curiosity about things.
Oh man, these guys are never going to stop going at each other. Now looks like Uncle Murder has officially taken on 50's beef with Rick Ross. This morning, he randomly decided, you know what? Let me go mess with Rick Ross today. Y'all remember a couple weeks ago when I reported that Rick Ross actually filed a cease and desist for Remy Ma's movie. This movie was going to be on her network, the Remy Network. It was a movie about a CEO that turned into a rapper. Now, I actually spoke with the producer of the movie. According to him, it had nothing to do with Ross. Now, Remy Ma and her lawyer actually said, hey, we're actually working with Rick Ross to resolve this issue. Me and Rick Ross are cool. We've never had any issues with each other. So from what it looks like, these two were going to work it out. Now, Uncle Murder said, good morning. I just wanted to remind y'all that Ricky Rosette, aka Rick Ross, hating on Remy Ma and the Remy Network for wanting to put out a movie about a correctional officer who was never in the streets that turned into a rapper, who started rapping about being a gangster but was really a fraud. And Ricky Rosette, aka Rick Ross, sent out a cease and desist because the truth hurts. I need to know what all my fellow hip-hop journalists and podcasts think about this because I don't hear nobody talking about it like that. I want to see the movie. The people want to see it. Now, I don't know if he knows, but people actually spoke on this. This happened damn near a month ago.
Craziest thing about all of this that's happening is Rick Ross then sent Remy Ma a cease and desist. Personally, like I said, I don't hold that against Ross because I feel like Ross, he's a rapper. That's not to take nothing away from none of these niggas. I look at rappers as just rappers. Now, yeah, a lot of rappers come from the street. A lot of rappers have been through some stuff. But at the point where you sign your name on that dotted line and you start putting out product, I have to look at you as a person that's selling a brand. And whatever that brand is, whether I believe it or not, you gotta That shit ain't up to me, it ain't up to y'all that's watching, it's up to the artists and their teams. Now, I mean, how many people do we believe were big drug lords and escaped that and made it in the rap? Not many, you know what I'm saying? Not many, if any at all. I feel like, you know, when it comes to rap, and this is just my maturity in the shit.
So he's actually pretty late on this news. That's why you don't see media personalities talking about it now. It's old news. But it is a good attempt to try to get Rick Ross going viral, try to get a hate campaign on social media going against him, especially when his verses against French Montana is coming up next week. Now you guys know the saying, do not throw stones if you live in a glass house. Last week, 50 Cent was hit with a lawsuit by a former employee who claimed that she was fired for refusing to help him hide assets and also file a fake police report.
50 Cent, aka Curtis Jackson, is responding through his lawyer to a lawsuit filed against him by a woman who worked with the music mogul for about 12 years. Here are some of the highlights of the lawsuit. Monique Mayers claims she refused to hide property in her own name to conceal Jackson's connection to a transaction during his bankruptcy-related reporting period. She also says she would not file a false police report accusing Jackson's driver and bodyguard of stealing Jackson's vehicle and approximately $600,000 in cash. Because of that, Mayers says she was fired in March of 2019 without cause and without severance. Now there's text messages, phone records that Mayers says prove she was harassed and endured emotional distress and psychological injury. 50 Cent's attorney responded, though, to those allegations, calling Mayers a disgruntled former employee who was terminated for cause over 5 years ago. His attorney also said this lawsuit is nothing more than a transparent attempt to use the guise of a legal proceeding to seek an unjustified payday well outside the applicable statute of limitations. They also noted Mayers has, quote, chosen to employ counsel who is currently engaged in separate ongoing litigation.
Hey, I'm about to check out. Y'all click in the comment cafe, like, subscribe, share, definitely notification. Peace and love.